It's the Chatty Patty Talk Show.
We will talk about the things that mean so much to you, like going to a restaurant or hanging at the zoo. Clothes and sports and funny news, crafts and travel too. Nothing ever scripted, so expect the unexpected.
Hello. It's the Chatty Patty Talk Show. It's the Chatty Patty Talk Show. It's the Chatty Patty Talk Show.
Hi, welcome to our show. It's Monday, November 5th, episode 71. I'm Chatty Patty.
I'm Paula Walla. It's 71. I thought it was 70.
Nope, 71.
OMJ.
Our special guest today is Claire Boyce. Claire is a retired nurse, and thanks for coming in today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Did you see any accidents on the way here? You had to pull over and help?
No.
Would you do that? Like if you saw someone injured?
Yeah, I do.
Is that like the nurse thing to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you're not actually retired because duty called and you're back.
Exactly. I retired, and after my 14-month vacation, I still felt like I had something left to give. So
That's good. Do you ever give anyone stitches?
I take them out. I don't put them in.
Okay. I wouldn't
I
want to
watch
put them
them
in
put
either.
them in. It wouldn't bother me.
Don't they dissolve? I thought stitches dissolve.
Some do. Depends what you use.
Okay. So let's start in the beginning and go back to what called you into nursing and where did you go to school?
Well, my grandmother was a nurse, and so I probably always knew I was going to be a nurse. And I went to Henry Ford Hospital, School of Nursing, and then many, many, many years later, I got my bachelor's degree in nursing from Oakland University.
Did you used to play doctor and nurse when you were little?
Yes, I did.
Did you? Who was the
yeah.
doctor?
I don't know.
Did you, Paula?
No.
I did.
Sounds fun.
Probably when we did it, we didn't have a good definition in our mind of what would the difference of the doctor and the nurse, what their roles were. Now I do. And
Did you do like fake blood and all that? Like when you
No.
played? No. Okay.
I feel
too
like
messy.
I think the nurses do everything. What do the doctors just come in and make decisions and say what to do and leave the room.
It kind of feels that way sometimes. They're getting paid to be the brains, but I'm the one that's at the bedside, 24/7, or my sisters and brothers. I've actually stood at a bedside for 12 and a half hours and not even gone to the bathroom because the
Why?
patients were that sick when I worked in intensive care.
Wow.
That, the only time you left was to go get more meds and come back.
What are all the departments you worked in?
Oh, see. I worked on a general med surg floor in 1985 with AIDS patients when nobody knew anything about AIDS. So that was a lot of fun because we knew we were the AIDS floor, the AIDS hospital of Michigan practically. And then I went to the medical intensive care, and I've done a couple stints as a case manager. I've worked in cardiac rehab, neurosurgical intensive care, and probably one of my best ones was interventional radiology because I felt like those guys knew it all and could do it all.
What's interventional radio? Like, I don't even understand that.
It's doing surgery with a needle and using x-rays instead of opening somebody up. If somebody has an aneurysm where vascular surgery would go in and slit them stem to stern and open them up, we could go in with the needle and put the stent in and everything would just be cool. And we just did it through a hole in the groin.
Wow. That's crazy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you did say that working on the AIDS floor was fun. How was that fun? Rewarding, probably.
Oh, yes. See, our floor was gastroenterology, infectious disease, and allergy. So we had asthmatics and GI bleeders, and then we had our AIDS patients. And every place else in the hospital, if they were in another room in the hospital besides our floor, they might see somebody 3 or 4 times a day when their meals came in. They never got a hot meal. People that would come into the room would look like spacemen with gowns and masks and gloves. And when they came to our floor, we treated them like human beings.
Oh, thank you.
Oh,
That
yeah.
sounds beautiful.
Oh, it was,
You weren't afraid?
no, we, Our patients were very protective of us.
Uh-huh.
I can remember one patient yelling at me because I didn't use gloves when I changed his perfectly dry sheets.
Oh,
You know,
really?
and by that time we pretty much learned that it was blood and fluid transmission. But when I first started, we weren't sure about anything, and it even had a different name.
Oh, really?
It was HTLV3, not HIV.
Oh, so who changed the name?
Probably NIH or Infectious
NIH.
Disease Society or CDC.
And now, don't they now AIDS patients? I'm guessing are treated basically as outpatients unless they're very sick, right?
Back then, we didn't know what meds. We didn't have the antivirals that they have now. They would come in and they would get 6 weeks of antibiotic therapy, and we didn't have lines where we could send them home and teach them how to do it themselves. So they just stayed in the hospital for 6 weeks and got therapy. It's kind of like a fraternity house or a sorority house, as it were.
Wow.
Did they all die?
Yeah, back then they all did. They don't know.
Yeah.
They've really made some strides.
Yeah.
That's awesome that they don't now, because that would be horrible. I mean, all your patients died.
And they would they would choose their nurse. And that patient and the nurse would bond so much, and they would always die on that nurse's shift.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Because they were comfortable, you think?
I don't know. It was just a really strange phenomenon that they always
Their
would
favorite nurse.
die with their favorite nurse. I don't know if it was a trust thing or...
I hear that's true with hospice, too, that people can kind of in their brain choose when they're going to go out. Like they, so-and-so
Wait for a
came
relative
to...
from out of town to get there
Yeah.
to say goodbye.
They will. And they, not even in hospice, but anything, I've been in rooms where we know the patient's dying and the family's all coming in, and really you've got this bed here and the patient in it, and the family members are having a party all around them. And they feel that energy, and they keep drawing from that energy. And if I send them out, I could send them out and say, you guys, you got to go out. I'm going to do my thing. I want you to go get some lunch, go get some coffee, walk around the hospital for half an hour, get some fresh air, and come back 10 minutes later.
They're
All
gone.
gone.
Oh.
And sometimes it's just, I think for some people, one time it happened to me with, it was the day of my baby shower, and so I've got a corsage on, and, we had a baby shower at shift change.
A work
at
baby
7,
shower?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then my whole day is with this man who's dying with his mother and his wife. And at 2 o'clock or so, I said, you guys got to go out. I'll stay here with them. And I was with them checking all day. As soon as they left, he went. He just, I think that he just couldn't do it with them there.
Yes.
I'm playing sad.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's go
That'd
on.
be
There are happy
heartbreaking.
things, too.
Yeah.
There
yeah.
are happy moments. What are some crazy moments when someone comes in and you cannot believe
I can't
how did
say
this-
on TV.
There's got to be a lot of stuff.
All
a
right.
lot of bad stuff.
Anything with gerbils.
Oh,
All right. That's
so you
false.
got a lot of stories that you don't like to
Yeah.
share, but
I mean,
Make you
there's some
laugh.
really sad ones, like a gentleman who had a drinking problem and hadn't had a drink in 20 years. And at his daughter's wedding, he had a glass of champagne, went into fulminant liver failure, and got listed and was an early liver transplant. I mean, 20 years without a drink and one glass of champagne.
one more was too much.
One more was too much.
Well, there's a lesson for you right there, Paul.
Yeah.
And we're going to the Clausen Steakhouse after. They have the best martinis.
No regrets.
We should have had you bring a stethoscope and do a little mini checkup.
Blood pressure. What about do-it-yourself healthcare and, YouTube videos and all this information online? Do people come in with totally wrong
yes.
ideas of what's happening to them?
They see the ads on TV. They know they
You need
have
this
this
drug.
disease and they want this drug. And, I work with doctors that will not give a specific drug until they've talked to the researchers that were in the trials of the drug to talk about what they found and how it works. And, the drug goes, you can get it today, but they haven't talked to the researchers yet. And people are knocking on the door saying, I want this drug. And they're not sure if it's for that. Your doctor isn't quite sure if it's for you. He wants to talk to somebody. And, they're just there. I know this is me, And then of course, everybody can look up all their diagnoses and come in and swear they have it.
WebMD.
Yep.
We've all Googled that.
And sometimes it's good and sometimes it's not.
Yeah.
My doctor personally says do not go to WebMD. Don't. You're just scaring yourself into thinking you have something horrible when you don't.
Exactly. And that's why they study for 8 years and
Yeah.
hands-on for a lot more years,
So can you take blood from people?
Oh, yeah.
That just seems so difficult to me. Have you ever not found a vein in
Oh, yes.
Where do you go
Why
from there?
are some people so bad at it about taking blood?
I was told my veins were deep seated once. What does that mean? I'm fat or something?
They're just deeper. I don't like to go after a vein that I can't feel. I don't care if I can see it. I want to feel it.
So Paula's
But
maybe
some
aren't close to the surface.
Right. And some people will only go after what they see. I mean, they see a juicy one here and they'll want to go after that. And it's like, no. Hands hurt. I'm going to
Oh,
go.
look at her, man. You
Yeah.
got a
Oh,
good
they
one.
love
they
nurses,
love that.
They get excited when they see my vein.
The Red Cross probably
That one.
just
Yeah.
salivate.
So
Yeah.
what? Okay, you can't go for the arm or the hand. Say,
well, I
where do you
don't-
go next? Like the neck?
If we can't find it, and when we were in interventional radiology, they would send us the hard sticks. If we couldn't find it, we give it to the doctors or the physician's assistant who have ultrasound, and they'll find it.
Oh.
Oh my gosh, that's pretty severe.
I'm watching this medical show right now that they're trying to sell high-end medical equipment. They're trying to sway the doctors into going with them. Anyway, they had this flashlight thing,
A
and
vein viewer.
yeah, it's like a stud finder in the wall.
Vein viewer.
I've used them
Why don't they all just have
Stud
those?
finder.
because they're about $27,000.
Are you
Oh,
kidding?
hello.
No.
Oh. Well, use a black light like they do on those crime shows. You ever see them when they do those over a bed and they go, whoa, a lot of
Yeah.
action there.
To see how scroty the sheets are.
There's a cheaper one that we used to use in IR, and I loved it, but not everybody has it. It's what they use in the neonatal intensive care sometimes.
Do you ever
It's light.
have to take blood from a little baby?
Oh, no, I don't do children.
You would just poke their foot.
I'll do old people, but I don't
Yeah.
do children.
You would just
Okay.
poke their foot.
Oh, I almost cried when they were trying to draw blood from my daughter when she was a newborn. It's like, oh, that's so terrible. And finally, one of the ER nurses just said, I'm just going to go for the vein, and she got right in.
My favorite story is when my oldest son was young, we went to the health department to get shots. And there was this little boy who was 3, and we were all waiting to get shots. And he was saying, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. And they're like, number 23. And he just went, it was so cute.
I
If
remember
it's done right, it shouldn't hurt.
going to one of my daughters for her well visits, and one of the questions was, does your child ever eat dirt? And I'm like, yeah, occasionally. She'd sit in the yard, and I've seen her eat dirt,
I don't feed it to her at the dinner table, but yeah.
Oh, my God. We had to go to a phlebotomist
Oh, gee.
and get blood samples because of all these, it could have been,
Toxic.
who knows, worm
That
poisoning.
just stimulated your daughter's immune system.
Yeah,
Right.
she's fine.
That's why
She's
our
fine.
generation's healthier. You've got all these people
Yeah.
now that their kids.
We drank from the hose.
We drank from the hose.
I still do.
Right. And,
I love hose water.
I see people that just live with their hand sanitizer, and every time their child touches something, their hand. Well, how are you going to get an immune system if you never stimulate it?
That made me think of something I heard recently on the news about kids that are trying to get their chicken pox for their kids, and they have chicken pox parties. Have you heard about this?
That's nothing new.
It's
I don't
not?
think. No, because they
you
were
went
doing
to
that
one?
when my kids. No, I wanted
You
my
hosted one?
kids to get the chicken pox, and I didn't go that far, but I didn't hold him back from kids that I knew had the chicken pox, and he got it. But
What is shingles?
Shingles is the chickenpox virus that lays dormant in your nerve endings until something stressful probably happens, and it starts going wacko.
should we get a shot for that so that we don't get that?
If you've had chickenpox, then you need to get your Shingrix vaccine when you're
Yeah.
64, 65.
If you've had chicken pox.
you have the possibility of getting shingles.
It's still in your system.
It's still in your system.
My cousin has it. She's pregnant right now, and she's like 30.
Oh, terrible.
I know.
How uncomfortable.
We should get her on the show.
Yeah.
Well, how are you at home? Like, are you super careful? I always, what about like, I'm
No.
kind of a freak when it comes to like raw meat in my kitchen. I'm kind of grossed out by that, but I'm not a germaphobe.
Well, you don't rub it in an open cut.
Well, I don't want it. There's all these things that I live by, because I am
My
a little
husband's
paranoid
like,
about it.
you can't eat that. It's got raw eggs in it. And it's like, well.
Cookie dough.
Exactly.
Hello. They sell it. You can get like a scoop of it in a cone.
And how many kids? Don't you give your kids the beaters to lick when you make a cake or cookies?
That's true.
You can't be too worried about some things.
No.
Hey, in Japan, they don't even refrigerate their eggs.
Interesting.
Well, yes, I was in Hong Kong, and they have open air meat markets that aren't refrigerated, and there's just flies all over everything, and they seem to be fine.
Yeah. It's what
So-
you learn to live with.
Now, it seems to me that any nurse that I know, they form this bond and they're all really close at work. Is it because you're working such long hours? You really have to rely on each other in like very important, stressful situations. What's it like, the work environment, when you're a nurse and you're working with that same crew for...
You can't do it on your own. You have to have help. Even if it's just, when I worked in intensive care, our patients are sedated and they're out of it. So to give them a bath, you need somebody to hold, to turn them. It helps to have somebody help hold. There are certain things that you do. You just need a second person. But I think the other bond is the fact that we went through something together. And when I see the nurses that I worked with over 30 years ago, when we worked on the AIDS floor, we're still like so tight. In fact, a couple years ago, we had a reunion.
Aww.
My mother-in-law is a retired pediatric nurse and surgical nurse, and she's in her 80s, hangs out with those nurses from nursing school. Like, they have retreats every year and all that.
Yeah, I get together, several times a year with people I worked with in IR. I still run into people in the hospital that I used to work with a long time ago. And, I'm people that I went to nursing school with. I'm Facebook friends with them because they're so far away. But, we suffered a special kind of torture together.
Yeah,
I
you go
can't
through a lot
swear.
of emotions together that normal jobs don't provide,
Well, I'm sure you've been through a lot. Like, you've probably had some difficult patients.
Oh, yes.
So is it better to have a sedated patient?
And this sounds really bad and, like we're not caring people, but the patient that you fought over, everybody wanted to get was the patient that was paralyzed, sedated, and anything that patient did was because you did it for them. That was the perfect patient.
Wow.
And, dressed, pressed, and ready for viewing it by 8 o'clock in the morning. They'd had their bath, their bed changed, everything.
No complaining.
No, they didn't complain. But then you had to deal with families. And there's a lot of physicians today that treat the family, not the patient.
Wow.
I mean, you come in there and, mother, just, and the doctor and the patient pretty much are on the same page, and he's got to do something to shut up the family member because they're going to burn up the phones and call and complain. But
Yeah.
we always do our best for every patient. That's all there is.
Yeah.
Sometimes some of the best for the patient. And I've told patients, if your family gets to you, you give me the high sign. I'll get them out of the room.
Right. Oh, the patient needs time alone right now.
Yeah, but you
need to
know what?
leave.
She's really tired, and I need to do my things. I'll go, and I'll see you in half an hour. Bye-bye.
I'm just going to
Oh,
say...
I'm sorry, your mother's... Well, I'll call you when she wakes up.
Yeah. Oh, good one.
Anytime I've ever been in the hospital, it is really hard to get rest in a hospital. When they say, okay, go in the hospital and get some rest.
No.
None.
They're going to come in at 2 a.m. and draw your blood.
Yes, and the
they're-
blood, the cuffs going off. And
Wake up to take a sleeping pill.
yeah. And,
I always tell people that we make it terrible on purpose, so you want to get out of here.
Yeah.
Because back in the old days, people used to come and stay. I mean, people would go in the hospital for 1 or 2 weeks to have a baby. A natural delivery.
When my mom was born, her parents went on a vacation and took her back to the hospital, and they watched my mom as a newborn baby while her parents went on vacation.
Like that would happen today.
No.
It's a little more expensive nowadays. So you worked in infectious diseases. That must have been interesting, because I had an experience when my daughter was in the hospital when she was little, and she was having some kind of issues, and they kept saying, the infectious disease people kept coming in and saying, have you been to a farm recently? Have you petted any deer? I think they thought she had Lyme disease, right?
Probably.
Yeah. Lyme disease is bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you can't get rid of it, or can you get rid of it?
You know what? I haven't studied it. I haven't worked in infectious disease since it got big, so that's
really
in my
took
past.
off. Well, what can we do to become better patients?
Go into your doctor prepared with a list of questions when you see them. Expect that if they're really good questions, you may only get to 2 or 3, and so you have to make another appointment for the other 7 or 8.
Wow. You're going to run out of time.
Bring a list of medications.
Oh, yes. Bring your list of medications. And I'm going to tell you that one of my big things is talk to your family members and tell them what you want. If something happens to you and you had a stroke or a car accident, we're brain dead, what do you want? Do you want to be kept alive with feeding tubes? Do you want to be let go? Do you want to say, okay, I'll give you a week to turn me around, then turn things off? But let your family know what you want. If you knew how many times I stood by the bedside and said, oh, Mama would hate that. Oh, Mama would just hate
but we're
that.
letting them do it to you anyway.
Right. And then you say, oh, let me go get the doctor. We can, if Mama wouldn't like this, we can fix this. Oh, no, I can't be the one to kill Mama.
But once your brain, this sounds probably stupid, but once you're brain dead, you're not coming back, right?
Right.
Is there any turnaround ever on that?
No.
Okay.
No.
That's probably a really dumb question, but I don't know that.
We had a patient in medical intensive care once where we had them in the unit with the signed death certificate on the chart because the patient's brother had a restraining order. And she was an educated woman, and she knew what was wrong with her, and she chose certain treatments. The doctors knew. And then when the cancer got to her brain, her brother said, we want everything done. She didn't want everything done when she was able to make that decision. But it must not have been in writing, but, he who makes a lot of noise gets...
Wow. Well, it's good to have your paperwork in order.
Right. And all the paperwork in the world is great, but make sure your family knows. And talk to your, if you still have
make
parents,
sure your family is going to honor your decisions.
Right. I have a friend that her husband and her sister are number 1 and 2 on her advance directive of who will take care of her. But she knows that they won't be able to make the decision that she wants made. And so I'm number 3. And she's told them,
no
if
pressure.
it comes down to it, let Claire make the decision. You can back out and Claire will make it. Kind of sad, but
now what about organ donors? Is that a good thing? Do a lot of people do that?
Unfortunately, people are dying waiting for organs. So please, if you've got anything usable, give them away. They're not doing you any good. They're not doing you any good.
I think it's important for sure.
Oh yeah, I just went to an organ transplant conference on Friday. So yes, I'm really big into organ donors.
I thought you were going to say an organ concert.
No, a transplant Actually,
are they called organists?
Yeah. I worked at Henry Ford Health System, and in fact still do. And I was working the night that our first heart transplant was done. And the helipad was right outside my unit. I was working midnights, and I saw the helicopter come in and take the transplant team and go out, and I saw the helicopter come back. And then the whole hospital was like electricity. I mean, we knew there was a transplant going on, and we knew it was the first one. It was so exciting.
Wow.
You know what I saw on Facebook? It was, they always have these videos, and it was a hospital, and I don't know if every hospital does this, but when someone, I think, is brain dead and they're donating their organs, they showed them pushing that patient covered for just privacy purposes through the hospital to go to where they're going to donate, and everyone lines the hall Is that?
Oh, I haven't seen that.
I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
Everyone, out of respect, it was just, I'm going to cry. It was like dead silent.
Well,
Dead silent, that's great.
when I worked, I was doing home care once, and I had this young woman as a patient, and she had heart failure. And at that point, we talked about transplant, but she didn't want a transplant. She said, Claire, I just don't want anybody's heart in my body. I said, well, we're not going to worry about it. You know, you're young. It's not going to happen. And as I went around the hospital, I bumped into her in different departments that I worked in. And I happened to be in the hospital on a Saturday covering for somebody else when I was doing cardiac research. And I saw the transplant coordinator come on. I said, hey, what are you doing here today? And he said, oh, we're doing a transplant today. And I was talking to someone who was waiting for a heart that I knew very well, too. I said, oh, who are you doing? And he said, Kim. And I said, where is she? And he told me your room number, and I went down the hall. When I was her home care nurse when we first met, I said, if you have a transplant, I will be there before you go to the operating room. And there was no way that she could call me or even remember. And anesthesia was interviewing her when I walked into her room, and she looked up at me and burst in tears and said, Claire, you know, I kept it together for my whole family, but I had, you know, like 10 years before I had said, I will be there. And for some stroke of luck, I was there. There was no reason for me to be there. It just proves to me once in a while
She must have been so happy to
existence of
see
God.
you. It was a good sign.
Yeah, it just proved the existence of God to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was one of those strange things.
I have a friend who had her kidneys went bad. You can have one kidney,
You
right?
can, yeah. And if you get a kidney transplant, like if I donated one of my kidneys to you, we would both have one.
Okay. Hers were both bad, and her dad donated hers. And I thought that was pretty cool. Jeff Levine.
Oh, yeah.
The minute they told me that, I just burst into tears. I don't know why. It's just a beautiful thing to give
And
your
they're
daughter.
both doing great.
They're both doing great.
Yeah.
But it's harder on the donor, they said.
Yeah.
It was really hard on him.
Well, you're used to having two very functioning kidneys, and then you go down to one where somebody
instead
else
of one slowly dying,
or
all of a sudden you
instead
just
of
have
two
one.
slowly dying, or
Right,
all of a sudden you have one really great kidney. You feel great.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is there a time of year where there's more people that are sicker or
I think the change of seasons this time of year and in the spring.
spring?
So when Grandma says, put a coat on, your hair's wet, you're going to get a cold.
Nah.
I always say no. That is so not true.
I got
That's a virus.
I got an early flu shot, and I'm nervous because I typically get sick in the spring. So I don't know why I decided to do that this year, but I'm scared about the spring. That's when I usually get sick.
And you know what? You can talk to your doctor. The flu season goes officially. The vaccine is actually good until June 30th. You could always go back and ask for a booster.
I
do you
didn't
get
know
one?
that was such a
Do you
booster.
get one?
Flu booster.
Do you get a flu shot?
I have to if I want to work.
Okay.
If I don't have a flu shot by December 1st, I'm unemployed.
Oh, yeah, that's
I just,
kind of creepy.
I've heard so many people get a flu shot, get the flu.
No, that's
no,
not true.
that's
not
is
true?
a myth.
That's a myth. You may feel achy and stuff as your immune system, but then you were already coming down with something. That's so not true. CDC has reams of paper they will argue that with.
So I should get a flu shot.
You should get a flu shot.
Yeah, especially being around all those little kids, Paula.
Especially
I know.
around all little kids, they're just petri dishes. And the fact that, Paula, you're not as young as you used to be.
I know.
That's why I got one this year. I decided I'm just going to start getting them because I didn't always get flu shots. But
So you can go to CVS and get one. That's the same. They're all.
It's all
it
the
doesn't
same.
matter where you go. Okay.
well, we'd like to thank our special guest Claire Boyce, retired nurse. Thank you so much for
Yes.
joining us today.
Oh, you're very welcome.
And thanks for watching another episode of the Chatty Patty
Palo Walla Talk Show.
Hello, hello, hello. It's the Chatty Patty Palo Walla Talk Show. Hello, hello, hello. It's the Chatty Patty Palo Walla Talk
We
Show.
will talk about the things that mean so much to you, like going to a restaurant or hanging at the zoo, clothes and sports and funny news, crafts and travel too. Nothing ever scripted.